Hello, everybody, and welcome to part 2 of the Commerce Extension series. Today's topic will be a deep dive into Commerce POS with the new Independent POS SDK. My name is David, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. This session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name, email address, and/or phone number may be viewable by other session participants in the attendee list. By joining, you're agreeing to this experience. The recording will be available on the TechTalk's Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions during today's presentation. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Mugunthan, Senior Program Manager, and Luke Graham, Senior Software Manager. Mugunthan, over to you.
Thanks, David. Hey, hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the session. So the agenda for today's session, we will first talk about the overview of POS extension. So what are the different POS types and how extensions are packaged and deployed. Next, we'll cover the different packages and project types. Okay. So previously in the old SDK, you would have consumed the POS API.d.ts file and the POS API.sdk file to consume the POS extensions or APIs. Right? Now, all the references are required for POS development is moved to the NuGet packages. So I will talk about the packages and what all the different project types you need to create for the point of sale extension. Okay. Then after that, we'll cover the extension patterns. So what are the different extension pattern in POS and for which scenario you should use which pattern. Okay. Then we'll do a deep dive with the sample extension scenario. So we have taken a sample scenario. Okay. And then for that sample scenario, we try to touch most of the common extension pattern. So we'll go over like deep dive on all those different extension pattern and how will you code them. Okay. So this will be more like a deep dive technical session on like how do you code for the sample scenario. But the main goal was like to make sure we showcase you the different extension points in the new SDK and how you can develop them. Yeah. At the end, we will end with some Q&A and key session takeaways. With that, I will get started. Yeah. So, many of you, if you already know the point of sale, the overall architecture of the point of sale is not changed much, but how you package and deploy or how you development is what little bit changed with the new SDK. Okay. So the first thing, so we have the cloud point of sale, which is posted in the CSU. Suppose if you are a customer where you want your point of sale to be fully deployed in cloud and you don't want to set up the device with like zero footprint, like just open the browser, and if you want to run the point of sale application, then you can use the cloud point of sale where everything is deployed in cloud. Okay. So any extension you develop for the cloud point of sale will package and deploy to the cloud here. So if you see the blue box here, the extension packages and controls, that goes to the cloud CSU where you package it and deploy. Okay. Similarly, we have the other the cloud point of sale. The first one, as I talked about, the cloud point of sale, it's connect to the web service or the web app posted in the CSU. Okay. And then we have the other two versions, the iOS point of sale and the Android point of sale. In the SDK, it's called as the hybrid app. Yeah. But both this iOS and Android app, it's just like a shell for the iOS and Android. Internally, it renders the cloud point of sale. Okay. So the same extension, the cloud point of sale you deployed in the CSU will be rendered in the iOS and Android point of sale. So any client-side extension you do, it will be posted in the iOS, and then this Android and iOS will render it. Okay. So only one additional, currently the iOS app doesn't support any hardware station extension, but in the future we may plan to support it. But for the Android, you can do like payment extension connector. So it has a native payment extension support also. Okay. Then the other one, mainly for the on-prem scenario and for offline, we have the modern point of sale. So it's the same extension you develop, it can either go to the cloud point of sale based on your deployment topology, but it can also go to the modern point of sale. This is like a Windows app where you will download the installer from the lifecycle service and install it in your local machine. Okay. This has like much more power. Like you can do also a lot of hardware station customization. You can do like the offline CRT extensions, and it has your own offline SQL database. So depend on your topology. If you need offline, then you can go with the modern point of sale. Okay. But the advantage is the same extension done can be used both in cloud point of sale as well as the modern point of sale. But it depends on your deployment topology. You can choose the right model. Yeah. Okay. So with that overview, I will move to the new SDK extension model because the one I talked previously, nothing changed much. It's the same existing point of sale. In the future, we're going to add like one more new type, the store commerce. Maybe we'll cover that in a separate session. Okay. So now I'll talk about like how you can get the new commerce SDK and how you can start with the development. Okay. So the first thing is, previously, when you taken the old SDK, you would have went to retail SDK folder and used the point of sale application to do your extension. Right? Now in the new model, what has happened is like we published all the required packages for the point of sale development in the public NuGet feed. Okay. So this is the public feed location where you will find this 3 packages, which is mainly required for the point of sale development. So the first package is the commerce.sdk.point of sale. This is the main one which is required for you to consume any of the consume, create. I will cover what is consume, create, extend later in the session. But for any of the point of sale extension scenario, you will use this package. Basically, you will add this as a reference to your extension, point of sale extension project and do your development. Okay. So you don't need to have like in the old SDK, the POS.extension project, or whether you need the modern POS, you don't need any of those. You will start your own, create your own template project or your own new project, and then consume this package to do the point of sale extension. So that's like one big change between the old SDK and new one. So similarly, how you do .NET development, right? You open like a template project from Visual Studio and consume the package and start doing your development, right? Something very similar where you create your extension project, okay, and then just consume this package. Okay? There is no dependency between our app or your extension. It's more like now .NET based, kind of similar to .NET development. Okay. Then the second package you need is the installer package. So okay, now I have done with all my extension here. How will I package and deploy it, right? As I said, like there is 2 topologies, one for the cloud and one for the on-prem. Right? So if you want to create on-prem installer, including my CRT extension or like the offline database extension or the hardware station extension. So for all those on-prem, you will consume this package and then you generate the installer. Okay, this is for the on-prem. Suppose if you say like, hey, no, I don't have on-prem, I'm doing everything cloud point of sales, I want to deploy just to the cloud, then you will use this package type to generate your extension project. Sorry, to generate your deployable package. Okay. So these are the 3 main packages you would need for your development. Okay. You can get these packages from this public feed. You will also see the right version number. Say, for example, you are in 1021, you will see the 1021 version. If you're in the 1022, you will see the different version of packages available. Something very similar like in NuGet, if you want to get any .NET library, right? So you'll see the version and you can choose the right version according to your Go Live CSV version. Okay. And the update is also much more simplified. You don't have to go to LCS, get the new SDK. It's very much more straightforward. Just go to NuGet, pick the whichever right version for your Go Live here. And other one change, all the now samples is available in this public repo. So if you want to see like, hey, how do I consume this package and do development? Do I have any reference or documentation? Documentation is still published in the Microsoft Docs site. But if you are looking for some samples on how to do it, you can find all the samples here. The samples are just for your reference. You don't have to like download it. You can download and try to do it, but it's not like you must follow the structure or something. So you can follow your own way of development. Yeah, this is more to give you an idea. So with that, I will move to the next slide. Okay. So the next I'm going to talk about, okay, what. So now I know what packages to consume. okay, I saw the samples. Now I am ready to develop. What should I do? Right? That's your going to be your first step, first question you're going to ask. Okay. So the first thing is, it doesn't matter whether you are doing for CPOS or MPOS, Cloud POS or the modern POS. You want to start with your extension project. Okay. Basically, this extension project is going to contain only your extension. It can be your, if you're ISV, you want to, where you want to create your extension app, then you will create a POS extension project. Okay. Similarly, if you are a partner doing for a customer specific scenario customization, or like any scenario, you will first step is you will create like a CS project, okay, mainly for your extension, okay, and then you will consume that the package I showed, the POS package from the public feed, and do all your customization. Okay, so this is the first extension project you're gonna create. Okay, then the next step is, okay, now I am done with my extension. Okay, now I need to, for modern POS, you need to create the Apex file. For an installer, for CPOS, you need to create the deployable package. Okay. So then after I created my extension, now I say like, hey, I want to do it for modern POS. Okay. Then for modern POS, the next step will, you will create a JS project. Okay, where this project will help you to generate the Apex file. And then if you're consuming any offline CRT settings, or like the offline CRT DLL, and if you want to generate the proxy and then want to sign, so you will do all those things in this project. Okay. Now, okay, the Apex file is created. Now, how will I deploy it, right? That's the third project. You're going to create the installer project, okay, just by consuming the installer package I showed in the previous slide, okay? So even for this modern POS JS project also, you will still consume the same .pos package, okay? And for the installer, you will consume the installer package. So for modern POS, it's just like three projects you need to create. One, your extension project, where you're going to contain all your business logic for the extensions, okay? Next project is the Apex project, where JS project, where you're going to create your Apex file. Because if you take the MPOS, it's going to contain the Apex file. That's what it get deployed. Okay. Then to deploy the Apex file with CRT and other DLL, you're going to create the installer. Okay. Now for cloud, if you're doing only cloud point of sale, you do the POS extension, then the scale unit project, okay, to create your deployable package. It's sort of like two steps for the cloud point of sale. Okay. So these are the four primary projects. Depends on your scenario. It can be two or three. Depends on whether it's cloud POS or modern POS. You're going to create these different project types. Yeah. So we kept it very simple and structured. Okay. Just my extension, my packaging and deployment project. That's it. So much simpler like when compared to the previous SDK. So these are the different projects type. Okay. How are you going to create your extension? Maybe later during the session, Luke will do a deep dive on how all this project structure is structured and how you're going to consume package and do it. Yeah. So this is just to give you an overview with the new SDK, how you can get started. So just to quickly summarize, two things you need to do: consume the packages from the public feed, okay? Then create your extension projects and start the development. Okay? Either if you want, you can create your own C# project and then CS project and do it, or you can also download the samples available from the GitHub and then you can just like do it. You don't have to like do a exact clone and then like continuously update or with our report like the old SDK. The samples now is just for like a reference, so you don't have to like maintain versions with our samples, etc. Yeah. Okay. With that, I will go to the extension patterns. Yeah. Okay. So basically in this extension pattern, what we're gonna cover is like, hey, if there is a different scenario, how the POS customization is structured. Okay. So we categorized into three patterns: create. Okay. The first create pattern is where, like, suppose if you have some custom scenario which is not supported out of the box and you want to create like a new views or like completely new functionality, say for example, if you are ISV and you want to create like a hospitality scenarios, or if you are developing something like a new customer service module or something like that, where you want to completely create new functionality, in this case we'll follow the create pattern. Okay. So with the create, what you can do, you can create your new operation. Basically in POS, everything is like a button grid operation driven, right? It depends on your scenario. It can be a app bar button customization, or it can be from a view. But from the pattern wise, you can create new operation. You can create like a new handlers. Handlers is nothing but like a request response. Okay. So you can just create a request response and call it from your extension. Okay. and also you can create custom views, custom controls and dialog, or you can also do some custom workflow for your extension. So to summarize, if you want to create something completely custom functionality, then you can follow the create pattern. Okay. The next is the consume. Say, hey, I created my custom view, but inside that view, I want to add item to cart. Right? The add item to cart is an existing functionality. Or say, for example, hey, I I created a custom view where I want to show some product price. Right? So the price is already existing API. So I want to consume some of your existing APIs or functionality or control or my custom view. I may want to consume your controls, right? Okay. In that case, we call it as the consume pattern, wherein wherein your custom functionality, you can consume our controls or APIs. So that's where the consume pattern is. Okay. So where you can consume our APIs, because most of the common flows and process exposed as the API for extension to consume. Example, what I mean by API is like, as I said, like from your custom view, you want to add item to cart, right? Then you can call our add item to cart API. Say you want to save some custom properties or like the extension properties, then you can call the save extension properties API. Or if you want to call get the price, you can call that like the get price API. Okay. Similarly, if you want to consume our controls, say we have the data list control or the drop down control or the menu picker control. So you can consume all our existing controls in your custom use. Okay. That's the consume pattern. So when you do any customization scenario, you can decide whether it falls under create. Okay. Then I can follow the create way of doing my customization, or if you want to do consume, then you can decide based on the scenario. Then the last pattern is the extend, where you want to modify the out of the box functionality. Okay. So there is, let me give you a quick example. So there is a view. Okay. Say for example, product search view. Okay. In the search view, now I want to add a custom column to show inventory information. Or in the, for example, in the product details page, okay, I want to add a custom control and then show additional information about the product, right? So in this case, you are modifying the existing flow. That's why we are calling it as extend. So where you want to modify the out of the box flow. Say for example, I categorize this into two, one for the UI side, the other for the business logic side. Okay. So where on the UI, we can do three things. We can modify the view to add custom column. It depends on the view. If those view as like custom grid, you can data list control, you can add custom columns, or you can also add custom app bar and some views. For example, the product details, customer details, and then the price check supports custom control. So you can add custom control. Then on the workflow side or the business logic side, okay, there's two main things you can do. One is the trigger. Most of the operation in POS supports pre and post trigger. Okay. Let me give you a quick example. Say, for example, before set quantity, hey, I want to check the condition. Some items, for example, you may have a restriction not to sell more than 5 quantities, right? Then in the pre-trigger, you can do that check saying like, hey, is the user allowed to do sell more than 5 quantity? If it's not allowed, then you can throw an error and prevent the flow. Or after the item is added, hey, I want to call, say, for example, if you sell a wine where you want to report to a customer service, then like you can put a post trigger at checkout and then you can call an external service. So this pre and post is something you want to do before any, you want to do some business logic in point of sale or after the business logic in point of sale. That's where the pre and post trigger used. So you can find the list of available pre and post trigger on how exactly tied to operation in the triggers documentation. But this is like one pattern before. In this case, you are not modifying our core business logic, but you can do something before or after. Okay. If you do before, you can also have the power to stop executing the current workflow. Okay. The next pattern is the override. Okay. Where say for some scenarios, I want to completely override the business logic. Okay. Say for example, look later will show like the must key in quantity scenario. Okay. In this case, the quantity key in functionality, if you configure for the product, right, it's always going to show you a dialog to enter the quantity in point of sale. Okay. But for my business logic, I want to enter the quantity from, because in my custom view, the user will enter it. So I don't want to show this dialog, right? So in this case, you can completely override our business logic and do your custom functionality so that you can decide whether to show the dialog or not to show the dialog or do something additional, right? So you can completely override our business logic and you can decide. You can also call the base functionality. Okay? So these are the three main patterns, like how we categorize the extension. One, to summarize, create, where you're going to create new functionality. Consume, where in your custom functionality, you want to consume our APIs or controls. Third, it's where you are extending out of the box functionality. Okay, so just to quickly show you on the views where you can, there is two types of views. One is the screen layout driven, that is the cart view, and then the welcome screen. So in those cases, you can customize through configuration. So you can add like custom columns, or you can add like the custom fields on the totals panel. Okay, or you can also add like completely custom controls in this one. Okay, the next is where the code driven one, where I was talking about, you can add a custom column or like custom controls and the up bar button. So these are like the possible view extension, UI extension. Yeah. So Luke will later do a deep dive on the core other extension patterns. I talked about the override, trigger, and all those. Yeah. Okay. So the last thing is before we go to the sample scenarios deep dive. So there's the extension controls available for the extension to consume. Okay. So we exposed like around 9 controls. In the future, we may add more, but that is for now. These are the 9 controls available for extension to consume. But one big advantage is you can bring your own controls or any third-party controls. We support that. Say, for example, you can, if you want to use some third-party JavaScript library for that controls, you can still use those controls also. So you want to, hey, I want to completely design my new view with like a different structure. Yes, definitely you can do that with your own controls. Even some controls available in POS may not be exposed for extension. In those cases, it's like you're not blocked. You can still bring your own third-party control, okay, and then use it. Okay. The next one quick thing is like, hey, I know like many customer partner ask like, hey, how will I know like what are the different extension points available, right? Hey, I know you said like talked about overrideable handler, or you talked about the APIs and triggers. Hey, how will I know what all those triggers available or those APIs available? One, you can go to the documentation, and second, if sometimes the documentation may be not updated fully, but if you wanna, as a developer, if you want to know like what all the APIs available, then you can, as soon as you create that C# project, okay, for your POS extension and consume the POS packages from the public feed, once you do a first time build, it will create a dev dependency folder inside your, Look will later show this one. It will create a dev dependency folder inside your project, okay? And then in that project, you will see like 4 different files. Okay? The first file is the API file, which contains all the available extension points for the point of sale. You can find the list of APIs, list of controls available, list of overrideable handlers. So you will see all those information. Okay. Second, okay, now I have the API, but how will I know what is the input output parameter? It's like what is the definition of this API, right? It's what is the constructor it's going to take. You can find all those information in the type files. Okay. Because these all different input output parameter is not documented. We thought it will be more easy for the developer. Just they can go to this file and you can easily find like what is the input output parameter of this request response, or what is this column type in the view. So you can find all those or if you have like an interface, or if you have an enum, what are those properties, you can find all those in the types file. Okay. The next is the extension schema definition file. For the extension, you will create a manifest file. Okay. The manifest file is coming, the metadata for the manifest file is defined in the schema definition file. Okay. So it's kind of like the similar to the XML, XSD, similar way. For our manifest, we follow the schema definition. So if you're creating a custom view, you can see using the schema definition, you can understand like, how we're gonna put all the configuration in the manifest file. The last one is the TS config file. This is mainly for your compiler setting. In most cases, you don't need to modify it. Okay. So we have the base TS config file, and then extension will extend from this. So if you want to add your consume any third-party libraries and you want to include that, then you may use this config file. But for most of the other cases, you may not need to modify it. But if you want to add some special like compiler setting, which is very specific for your extension, or if you want to modify some of our base compiler settings, you can extend this, but generally we don't recommend you to modify this. Yeah. And detailed documentation of this new extension can be found in this link. So let's get in the interesting part of the deep dive on how to do the extension. Okay. So we have taken like a mock scenario to at least touch point, like the touch over like different extension patterns we talked about. Okay. So the mock scenario we taken is to show like a gas pump service. Okay. If you POS will integrate with the gas pump service. So if you go to a typical gas station, right, you will see a point of sale service which integrate with that gas pump service, like which is like a web service hosted somewhere. It integrates that with, and then it sends commands to uh, the gas stations available outside, saying like, hey, the user are asked to like pump gas for like $20 or $25, whatever, right? So you do the integration, get the real-time status, and you can do transaction based on it, right? So we took the similar mock scenario, okay, where we also created like a CRT and retail server extension to mock the pump's real-time status and information about the pump. And also we created some custom views to show the pump status and also how you can do sell and activate the pump. Okay. So we create like a mock scenario. The scenario is just to showcase, not like a real world, it's kind of a real world scenario, but it's not like a fully end-to-end working scenario. The main goal of the scenario was to showcase like, hey, how you can do some of this common extension pattern. So when you start with your customization, you can use this as a reference or a base for you to get started. Okay. So we'll cover most of the extension points with create, consume, and extend. So we'll show you like how to create a new view. Okay. And then we'll also show you like how to create a CRT, headless commerce API, and then the commerce runtime business logic to get the pump status. We'll also show you like how to create custom dialogues in the deep dive. Okay. Then in the consume, we'll show you how to consume the APIs, how to consume the controls, and also how to generate proxies for the new APIs. Then in the extend, we'll modify the existing view to add custom button, custom app bar, custom button in the header bar. Like if you go to the welcome screen or like any screen, you'll always see the header bar, right? So in that header bar, we'll show you how to add custom button, and also we'll cover like how to add app bar button and override one of our handlers to modify the business logic. We'll also show a quick sample on that trigger. Yeah. The one few things which is not covered in the sample was like the cart view extension, custom controls, how to create operation. But we have like a very good documentation on this one, so you can refer that and learn more about this. And if you find any documentation which is not helping you, you can always reach out to us. We'll definitely happy to add more samples to it or improve our documentation. Yeah. So with that, I will hand it over to Luke, who will do a deep dive on the code and exactly how you can code for these different patterns. Yeah. Over to you, Luke.
Thanks, Mugunthan. Let me share my screen here. Okay, so I will start by showcasing the demo scenario that Mugunthan described, and then I will go into the code and the solution that is powering that scenario. So just for starters here, we have my sealed MPOS loaded, and if we go to the settings page, we can see we have one extension package loaded with these few extension points to enable this gas station scenario. So going back and signing in. And we can see that the header bar has this custom header item that's showcasing the gas pump status. And so basically we can see as the window size changes, the header will expand and collapse, showcasing kind of how it works just like the other header items. So clicking this, and we can go to this custom view that we've developed for the sample, showcasing the gas pumps for our sample gas station. And we can see right now all of the gas pumps are idle for starters. And that's all done with the out-of-the-box data list control, as well as the custom details panel here that's all kind of developed within the extension, giving it the same look and feel as a standard POS view. And then we can also see down here, we have the app bar showcasing a number of different app bar buttons, one for checkout, one to enable or disable the selected pump, one that will disable all of the pumps, one to re-enable all of the pumps, and then this one which will show a dialog with additional information about the station. So with all of that show there, let's switch over quickly to CloudPOS to do a simulation of a customer pumping gas with a different extension point. So what I'm going to do here is I'll just search. We've created the gasoline product. So if I search for gas, and if I go to the product details page for this, we can see that there's another view extension here to start or stop pumping gas. And so if I do that, it will open a core dialog. This is the list input dialog. And so we'll use this and we'll select the gas pump. So for now, let's just say gas pump 7. And we can see here that the gas is pumping. So we'll let it pump and say we have a 10-gallon tank. So we'll give it a little bit more time and then we can stop pumping. And so what we can see here then is in MPOS that the pumping has completed. So we can see that it's communicating kind of with the server on the back end, and it'll work across different point of sale devices. So let's just go ahead and start pumping on another pump briefly. And so while that's running, we can go ahead and we can now select this pump, and we can see now the checkout icon is enabled. And so we can go ahead and check out and allow this customer to pay for their gas. And so we can see here, the gasoline was added to the cart with the quantity in gallons that they paid for, and we'll go ahead and complete the transaction. And so we can see we successfully completed this transaction, and the customer happily paid for their gas. Checking back in on CloudPOS, it looks like the pump is still running. So what I want to showcase here is just another scenario with our header, which is is a scenario where the customer kind of left the pump unattended and the pumping is overflowed. So once this reaches, I believe it's 75 gallons, that'll trigger that scenario. I had thought that this would run a little bit quicker, but we can see kind of through this dialogue that it's all behind the scenes is still using Knockout, but in a sealed way. And I'll go into more details on how to continue to use the Knockout library for simpler data binding, but in a more independent way than we had with the POS UI SDK. So as we get close to 75 gallons here, we'll see that maybe it's not 75, it might be 100. So we'll come back to that. But going back into the code here quickly, I'll start with our project structure for the solution. And you can see that I have 5 total projects here to enable development for modern POS as well as the online cloud scale unit. So there's the headless commerce engine or commerce runtime project. There's the POS extension project that contains all of the POS extensions. There is a MPOS packaging project. So this is the JS project that creates the Universal Windows Platform app package itself. And then we have the MPOS installer which will actually install that universal Windows app package. And then the last project we have here is the scale unit packaging project to create the scale unit deployable package. So with that there, let's switch back and see, getting close to the 100-gallon mark. So let's just let it run on another couple of seconds, and then we can kind of see what that will do to the header over in MPOS. So imagining we're the cashier here, and we're maybe helping another customer or doing something else, and we can see all of a sudden the header icon changed colors, and that indicates to us that there's an emergency, so we can quickly come over here and stop the pump that had the issue. So that's kind of the complete scenario that I wanted to showcase. So now we'll dive in a little bit more into the code that's enabling that scenario. So the first thing we have here is our Commerce Runtime trigger for the Get Extension Package Definitions request. And this is the trigger that we have to enable the POS extension package so that it will load it. And so this is what's giving us the list of extension package definitions that will ultimately be shown on the settings page here. If you're developing your extension and the extension package is not being displayed on the settings page here, it's more than likely that the Commerce Runtime trigger is not properly configured, and that's the reason that the package is missing. So moving on, I think there was a question on how to develop Commerce Scale Unit APIs previously in the chat. So just quickly, this is the controller that we created to power this scenario. And so what we have here are, I believe there's 5 different APIs, but we can see the first one is to get the gas pumps by the store number. And then we have one to get the gas station details again by the store number. One to stop all the pumps, one to start all the pumps, and then one to update a particular pump's status. And you can see with all of these controller methods, they are just very thin kind of pass-throughs to execute the Commerce Runtime request and then return the data that's contained in the response. So all of those requests are then powered by a single Commerce Runtime data service on the back end, handling the different 5 different types of requests. And for the purposes of this sample, we're just doing it all in memory, and it's not persistent, but it could very easily be extended to include the channel database and keep the pump status persistent. So, also just showcasing kind of some of the data model that we have in Commerce Runtime is our gas pump here. And so this is a custom entity that is created to power this sample, and we can see the various fields that are available on that class. So then all of this translates to POS and the TypeScript layer through the Commerce proxy. And so this will generate 2 different TypeScript files. So we have one for the requests for the Commerce Scale Unit API. So we can see here we have a request and a response for each of the controller methods that we saw in this file. And then in addition to the requests and responses, we have the entities that are also kind of the TypeScript entities mirroring those that we have in Commerce Runtime. And so all of this is done automatically in the Commerce SDK through project references. So simply by importing the POS SDK package here and then referencing the Commerce Runtime project within our POS project, it will automatically detect if there are any entities or CSU APIs and automatically generate these data service files here. So we can then move on to see kind of an example of where we're consuming these APIs. So starting here in our it's our data manager class for the whole extension solution. And so we'll start, we can see up at the top, it is importing the gas pumps namespace from the data service requests file. This namespace will match the name of the controller in the Commerce Scale Unit extension. And then we're also importing the entities from the data service entities file. So looking at what we do once we've imported and loaded those, we can see in our initialization function, we are using the custom APIs to get the gas pumps for the current store, as well as the station details for the current store. And so that's the data that is powering our list of gas pumps here, as well as powering the station information that's in this dialog. And so we can see simply using the runtime instance in the extension context, we can call those APIs just like we do for the core commerce API to get the device configuration above. So I think that covers just about everything I wanted to talk on for consuming custom commerce runtime functionality. So now I will switch over and talk a little bit about the gas pump status view that we have here. So first thing to note with this view is that it is extending from custom view controller base, which is the new base class that we created as a part of the Commerce SDK work to simplify custom view development. And so this is a replacement for the extension view controller base class that was there previously. And this view and the custom view controller base standardizes a couple of things that each view had to manage on its own with the extension view controller base. So the first of those being the title and the header configuration for the view itself. Previously, each extension view controller base had to include a header split view control if it wanted to display a header. That's no longer the case. Now the header will automatically be rendered for the view based on the configuration object that's provided to the constructor for the base class here. So if we dig in a little bit deeper to the configuration, we can see that there's a configuration for the header as well as for the navigation pane on the left-hand side here. So as of right now, these configurations just control the visibility, but in the future, if the need for more functionality arises, it'll be added there. And so the other thing we can see configured through the view controller configuration is the title for the view here, and that'll be reflected in the header with the pump status view showing there. So those are kind of quickly a couple of the changes to the view controller extension development. And then the next and probably the bigger change is how we are managing the app bar commands. And so previously, like with the header, it was up to each individual view to add a app bar control if the view desired to show app bar commands. This is also something that's handled as a part of the framework with the custom view controller class. So we can see here, we are passing our list of commands to in the config object, which is then provided to the base class, and then this will end up rendering all of the different @bar commands we see on the bottom here. So quickly on the commands, we're able to kind of manipulate them as the state of the view changes by setting the can execute and is visible properties. So we can see here when the selection changes, we're updating the checkout and the toggle start stop command to reflect that an item is selected and enabling the button. So the next important thing that we showcase with this sample is how to use knockout within the new Commerce SDK. So we can see at the top here, this import KO as from knockout. And so this knockout alias here is important. And so I'll show how this is all configured in the extension package now. So starting with the manifest, if we look, there's a new dependencies section that we've added. And so this alias here is needed to match the alias that we had within the TypeScript file itself. So that's the first thing to know about loading a third-party dependency in the Commerce SDK. And then the next entry we have is for the format. Currently, only AMD format is supported, but that should not be a problem as most of the commonly used libraries available are in this format or one that's compatible with it. And the last important entry in the dependencies node is the path to that library. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry about that. I was having puppy issues. It's joys of working from home. Yeah, but as I was saying, the module path here is the path to that third-party library within the extension package. And so it's important that this module path is configured here, and then it will also be configured in the tsconfig file as well. And we can see that that module path has to match what's specified under the path section here. And then that alias must also match as kind of the key here. So that matches to the alias here and also to the import path within the TypeScript file itself. And then the one last step that we have to enable all of this is just the including of the library itself within the extension package project. And the biggest thing to note here is that this knockout.js file, this path here is matching the module path specified here. And all of this is also available in the sample in the in-store repo on GitHub. I just wanted to do a quick walkthrough of how that was working in more detail here. So quickly, I'll jump back to our view and I'll show a little bit more on the data list usage and how to use POS controls within the Commerce SDK. So I'm jumping down here to the onReady function, which is a lifecycle method that'll be rendered by the POS framework when the view element is available and ready to be rendered. So we'll call this method and provide the element that's the root element for the view itself. So what we can see here happening in the sample is the view is taking that element, and then it is finding the element that is the data list element through the query selector. And so I jump to the view quickly. We can see that that's just going in and it's finding this div, and then it'll render the data list into that div element using the control factory, which is the new concept that's a part of the Commerce SDK. And so the control factory is provided in the extension context to all extension points that have a user interface. And it provides the ability to create these POS controls like data list, and some other common controls that I think Mugunthan laid out earlier. So basically, we create the element or create the data list, providing the element and the data list options. So I'll quickly skip over kind of all of this, but we can see we're configuring the columns and everything else much like we do in the POS UI SDK, as well as with custom column set extensions for core POS view controllers. The next thing that I wanted to highlight with the data list and with the other POS controls in the Commerce SDK is the usage of event listeners to notify the parent or calling code of user input or changes in within the control. And so this is the replacement for where in the POS UI SDK we were relying on knockout observables to handle this kind of data binding or notification of events. So now there's the ability to add event listeners to all of the controls within the Commerce SDK. So with that, I think I will call it for walking through the samples, and I think we can jump over to questions.
Okay, so Luke, can I read out the questions to you? Maybe we can, Siddharth, me, and anyone can answer. Yeah.
Yep, sounds good.
So the first question is how we can add one and more extensions. I assume it's for point of sale.
So the question is how to add more than one.
Yes, one. Maybe I think there was one more question also related to it, like if there is ISV extension, how we can do it. Okay.
Gotcha. So I'm going to take it then that the question I think is more referring to the number of extension packages than the number of individual extensions.
Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Okay. Sure. So for POS, we support as many different extension packages as needed. And so they can all be kind of packaged up and installed on the POS machine individually and then serviced individually. And so each extension package is then kind of its own self-contained unit of functionality. Mugunthan, I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to add to that.
No, just one thing I want to, and maybe we'll be also planning to do a deep dive session on the packaging and deployment. So we'll cover more on this one, like how ISV packages can be included in the build pipeline or how you can package multiple extensions. So we'll do a deep dive on that. Yep.
Perfect.
Okay. So the next question, I think, how to run MPOS and put it in a debug.
Sure, I can showcase that real quickly here. So what I'll go ahead and do is I will leave POS running here. And so that was kind of just launched through the start menu, and then to debug it, we will go into this debug menu and then other debug targets. And then we'll select debug installed app package. And then we'll just search for POS. And so since the app is already running, it'll show us the attach option. If the app wasn't running, it would say start instead, and then it would launch the app for us. So with doing that, we can see the debugger is attached. And so let me set a breakpoint to showcase this working. So let's see. Set one here. So this is going to be on our enable or disable pump command on our view. Sometimes this happens, so it looks like ultimately Visual Studio is having an issue right now, so it's not going to cooperate. But if this happens, we can just stop debugging and restart. I'll skip that for now for the sake of time, but we can see the step is really just going to the debug menu, other debug targets, and then debug installed app package. And that'll allow us to debug POS extensions.
Okay, thanks. So the next question, is there a sample on how to add product recommendation in a custom control in POS product details view? Which pattern I should use for that?
I don't think we have a sample for that yet. But I think the pattern to follow there would be to extend the product details view with the custom control. And then within that, the custom control would call the product recommendations APIs and render the recommendations, whether it's in a data list or with some other more custom UI.
Okay. So the next question is, does the independent packages for CPOS or MPOS and CSU all need to be completed and deployed together, or can they be staggered?
That is a very good question. So I think they do not need to be completed all at once. I don't think. The only requirement I would see is that each component be kind of released at the same time. So probably starting with the CSU and headless commerce engine extensions migrated first, and then on down to the client components like Cloud POS and MPOS.
Okay. So the next question is, will there be a way in the future for the import statements in POS to use tsconfig paths or root paths? Currently, the import statement needs the relative path import star from ... / my module. The non-relative paths will fine but won't run. Do you want me to repeat the question? No?
No, I think I understood the question. Okay. So I think the question is referring to saying if we, let me see if there's a better way to show this, but if, for example, in this extension file, we didn't prefix this with the / and we just had it as data service / data service entities with the non-relative path. The question is saying that this will compile, but it fails at runtime. I think as of right now, this is something that's handled by TypeScript. We can look into if there's an option we can control within the Commerce SDK that will limit TypeScript allowing this, and will provide the appropriate compiler error. But as of right now, it's just one thing to know is that for all references within the extension package, it's important to use the / and the relative path versus the non-relative import.
We are almost on time. Maybe let's just take this one last question. Yeah. Once we download Commerce SDK, how we can run with the existing samples? Maybe for this one, I think we will publish a detailed README on how you can run the samples in the GitHub itself. We're going to add I think there is an existing README. Maybe check if it's not here. Maybe we will also double check it and update it. So that will have the detailed steps on how you can run the samples. Yeah. I think we didn't answer like a few more questions, but definitely like last time, we will take these questions and then compile our answers, and then we will share it with you. So definitely all these questions the remaining questions will be answered. Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much for everyone attending the session. Back to you, David. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mugunthan. Our presenters would love your feedback. Please take the short survey now posted in the Q&A panel. We'd like your feedback on the session and hear what you'd like to see in future events. Thank you for your participation. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the TechTalk's Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters and to our audience for joining us today.